Shut the F up for life.
He needs to learn how to wrap that thing up.
Woo!
All right, welcome in, everybody. This is the Philly Experience podcast. My name is Max Kratzula, along with Tyler Hood, Tanner Gilmartin, back with you today.
It's hard.
Hopefully, everybody enjoyed their break, holiday season, whatever you want to call it, New Year's, Christmas, obviously, whatever you celebrate. We're back in action finally this week, virtually, but it's been a lot of fun over this break to just watch the Eagles, and obviously they're going to be a playoff team now, playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this upcoming weekend. Of course, we want to touch on the Sixers as well. They're playing great basketball right now, surprisingly, because where they were earlier in the season definitely does not, or probably not where we thought they would be at this point, considering who they have and the whole Ben Simmons drama with Tobias Harris now in rumors. Of course, we'll dive into that as well. But we want to touch on the Cowboys game. And of course, I know, T, you have a couple things to get off your chest as well about the Cowboys playing the Eagles backups, and also touch on Tampa Bay, because this is a huge game this weekend. A lot of people not giving the Eagles a big-time chance to win this. But when you talk about this Dallas game to start, Tanner, you were there, obviously, as you are every home game. I know the result isn't what we wanted to see, but I don't think we can harp too much on this past game, especially because Hurts didn't play, Kelsey only played one snap, etc.
No, we can't harp too much on this game. Like, for anybody that's really taking this game seriously, I don't know what you're thinking. And I'm gonna be honest with you. To all the Cowboys fans out there, because I've been fighting with them all week long on WIP and fighting with them on Twitter. I'm sorry, but they just, you guys are just way too arrogant. I'm gonna need y'all to really calm down. Like, you started off hot in the beginning of the season. You started, cooling off towards the end of the season, and now you think you're the shit because you beat up on a bunch of second and third stringers. All right, let me tell you something right now. Shut the F up for life. You better calm down, because Arizona going to bring that heat. Arizona beat you during the regular season. So I'm going to need y'all to relax. All right? You didn't do anything against the Eagles. You truly didn't. All right? You threw against Zach McPherson, and I don't know who the hell was the other corner off the top of my head. Let's be honest here. You didn't do anything. Your offense finally looked competent against backups and backups to backups. We didn't care about that game. We didn't give a damn. But yet still, you went out there and call yourselves, fighting to win, and you got to beat the Eagles, and look how good we look. I'm telling y'all right now, you ain't that damn good. I ain't just saying this as an Eagles fan. I'm telling you as an analyst. I'm telling you the truth. You ain't that good. Start piping yourself up. Relax. That's all I'm going to tell y'all.
Hey, you know too many Cowboys fans.
Yeah, I know.
And getting into this game, because the buildup wasn't as special. I mean, it wasn't like Dallas week wasn't advertised everywhere on social media like it usually is in the middle of the season. And at the beginning of the season, we looked at this game, and I'm pretty sure all of us assumed that this would be a playoff type of atmospheric game. Last game of the season, maybe it's a win and in type of deal. But no, the Eagles didn't have to worry about that, nor did the Cowboys going into this game. And for some reason, and I thought this was a risky play by the Cowboys, playing their starters for as long as they did. I mean, Zeke was in there until I believe it was the middle of the third quarter, at least. I'm pretty sure I saw Zeke still in there. A few starters were still in there. And imagine if one of those guys suffers an injury. I mean, was it even worth it? They were up by a lot, and they're still playing their starters. It didn't make sense to me. And okay, the Cowboys, the fans, they can have their bragging rights, whatever. They won both games this year. But I mean, the Eagles are just focused on the playoffs, and this is somewhere that they were not expected to make it. They started 2-5. Nick Sirianni, the only first time head coach this season to bring his team to the playoffs, which is definitely not expected from you go in the press conference talking about his public speaking abilities, which never mattered. And he still says some crazy weird stuff. Yeah. It's not like he changed over the time. It's still the same him. It's just he's been able to win. So people really they focus on it, but they're not scared about what he's saying because this team is winning.
Yeah, I agree with you. Look, the Cowboys, to harp back on them real fast, 6-5 versus every opponent they faced outside of the division, 6-0 in the division. Of course, they played all their starters throughout, except towards the very end of that football game. When you look back on it, I thought maybe the Eagles should play their starters at first, especially because the 49ers were a team that had an opportunity to lose, of course, playing a tough opponent in the Rams. And I thought the Eagles might be able to jump up and grab that 6th seed. But looking back on it, the 49ers won, obviously. So it turned out to be a good thing. The Eagles did not play their starters. But we have to touch on this team that we haven't mentioned yet, and that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, of course. Probably the opponent that I least wanted to see the Eagles play, based on the fact that they're going to have to go on the road, of course, like how they were going to do regardless. But this time, it's not Matthew Stafford they're playing. It's not Kyler Murray. It's Tom Brady. And albeit you have Antonio Brown's antics off the field, he's now not a member of the Buccaneers, of course. And Chris Godwin tearing his ACL, probably their most productive receiver all year, along with Mike Evans. Leonard Fournette, still question if he will play. And a couple guys on the defensive side of the football for this playoff matchup, including Jason Pierre-Paul. His status still uncertain. So when you look at this game on paper, the Eagles underdogs, do you give them a realistic chance to win the football game?
Here's the thing, and I give them a realistic chance to win, and it's only because of what they do best, and that is the run game. That is the foundation of the team. That is the foundation of their offense. They run the ball well. As a result of running the ball, you possess the ball longer than the opposition, and you are able to keep the ball out of the opposing offense's hands. You're going to need to do that against Tom Brady. Excuse me. You don't want to give Tom Brady the ball, and you don't want to give him time with the ball. That's the last thing that you want to do. And I'm sorry. I know we said we wasn't going to take a whole lot away from this last game, but the defense still scares the shit out of me. It truly does. Like, one play, one of the end zone plays, the pass to the running back, I think it was Dak's 4th touchdown, and Jonathan Gannon dials up a cover 4 in the end zone. A cover damn 4. That's one of the most conservative calls you can make in the when you play in defense, when you're calling defense. You can't do that. You can't do that against Tom Brady. I'm not confident in his defense from head to toe. I'm not confident in the pass rush. I am not confident in the linebackers to be able to contain Gronkowski. I am not confident. I'm not that confident in the DBs. I'm a little bit more confident in the DBs than that's probably where most of my confidence is. But I don't have confidence the defensive coordinator is going to put everybody into a position where they're going to be able to succeed. That's my concern. So, as an offense, you've got to run the damn rock. Keep that ball on the ground. Keep that ball in the Eagles' offense's hands. Keep Tom Brady off the field. That's a strategy. If you do that, you have a chance of coming out of Tampa Bay and getting upset.
Yeah, and one matchup I'm really going to be looking at is the Eagles' running attack against this Buccaneers defensive line, or their rush defense that has been the number one in 2019, 2020. This year, they're not as great. But the way that the Eagles have picked up pace, I believe it was after week 7, the Eagles really started running that ball. And that's the reason that they got that franchise record, best rush game in that franchise. And they're in the record books because they finally, and Nick Sirianni finally heard the fans chants. And I'm sure it wasn't just because the fans were chanting it. You have Miles Sanders, Jordan Howard, Boston Scott, Gainwell. I mean, you have guys that can run the ball, and they have such skill in the backfield that they can do what you need them to do. I mean, they're not the best. You look at other teams, of course, and comparing it to, but the way that the run attack has been so hot for the Eagles, going against this Buccaneers defense. I mean, you really have to prove your point against a good defense, tire them out, keep running the ball. Don't run the ball and see that you only get a 1 yard or minus yard gain and then just revert to the passing game so quickly. That's the kind of play that's not going to get the Eagles past the Buccaneers. You already have Tom Brady on the other side throwing the ball. And that's really going on my other part of the game that I'm looking at is that offensive line for the Buccaneers, and how they're going to be able to hold up against like Fletcher Cox and Hargrave and Barnett, a guy who, it's very inconsistent with play. But you go for the Buccaneers defense against this Eagles offense, who they've been playing pretty strong. And they're obviously part in credit due to how the rushing attack has been successful for the Eagles. You have Vea and Ndamukong Suh, who are just going to be very challenging for Jalen Hurts. Luckily, Jalen Hurts is mobile and can get it away from the challenge.
And real quick, it does seem as though, one of the things that Max talked about during the course of the season was he wanted to see growth from the quarterback position, and particularly Jalen Hurts. And I think he pretty much echoed what most of the fan base in the city of Philadelphia wanted. And of course, everybody wanted Jalen Hurts to improve. Everybody wanted Jalen Hurts to, be a better quarterback and make better decisions with the football. And if you look these past couple of games, I feel like he has, which is that's not something that you necessarily see too often. It's one thing to grow in the offseason, make leaps and bounds. That's typically what happens. But to see growth during a season is extremely rare. And you got to admit, you've seen some growth out of Jalen Hurts in these past games.
Without a doubt, he's definitely grown in everybody's eyes for the most part. And you have to talk about the rushing attack, which has helped the Eagles not only from their running back room, but also Hurts himself. I always think back to that game against the Saints where he had his 3 rushing touchdowns, massive performance for the Eagles. But for this game, you talked about the Eagles needing to run the football and keep Brady on the sidelines. The reason I give the Eagles such a small margin of error here, of course, it's the playoffs and you can't make too many mistakes against Tom Brady, especially going on the road. But it's just they have such a slim margin to win this game for multiple reasons. One, the rushing defense for Tampa Bay is ranked number 1 in all of football. So in order to run the football, you have to, first of all, your offensive line has to play great, but doesn't help that, Tanner, you mentioned it too, Vita Vea, of course, Ndamukong Suh right up front to block the middle interior. So it's going to be hard to run the football, and you're not going to outshoot Tom Brady as far as passing. So you're already at a disadvantage to start with. So it's like, okay, are we going to run the football against this number 1 defense? Or are we going to try to air it out and just try to go punch for punch with Tom Brady? Pick your poison, because either one of those things you're at a disadvantage from the start with. So I think what's going to happen is you're going to have to see early on in this football game, can you establish the run? And can Jordan Howard, Miles Sanders, if he plays, Jalen Hurts, I think is key in this football game. I don't think the Eagles are going to be able to just hand off to Jordan Howard and get 5-6 yards like they're able to do against the Giants and the Jets. I think you're going to have to get creative. You're going to have to do some movement on the outside. You're going to have to get Hurts out of the pocket and have Hurts run with his legs, because I don't want to see Hurts get into a shootout battle with Tom Brady going punch for punch. It's not going to work. He hasn't done that all season. It hasn't been the Eagles' MO with Hurts throwing the ball 25 to 30 times a game. In fact, every time he seems to do that, the Eagles lose. So they're going to have to run it. The defense for the Patriots, the defense for the Buccaneers is there's pass defense is not great, ranked 21st in the league as far as passing defense goes. So Hurts is going to have opportunities to hit Smith, to hit Dallas Goedert, of course, and those are going to be big plays. So I think if Hurts is able to get out of the pocket and score, he's going to have to score. I think Hurts is still going to have to run the football like he did at Alabama a ton. He's going to have to rush 10 plus times in this game if the Eagles want to have a shot, in my opinion. And also, they're going to have to make play. He's going to have to make plays with his arm. It's all going to fall on Hurts. And I hate to say that because he's a young quarterback in this league, but he's going to have to play one of his best games of his career, rushing the football. And also, he's going to have, I'm not saying he has to go crazy through the air, but he's going to have to make a 3 or 4 great passes. And you never know, maybe late in the game, he's got to convert a 3rd and 10. He's got to find Goddard on an out route. Some of those clutch, accurate passes I need to see out of Hurts in order to win this game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and that run game has to be successful. It has to be in some form successful, because you can't depend on Jalen Hurts' arm, albeit there's been much improvement with his passing game. And that's what's great about having a mobile quarterback. He's either, obviously, if he gets into trouble, no receivers open, he reverts to running the ball, or he can even throw it away. I mean, he can do so much on the ground too. And we talk about how many rushing touchdowns he has. I mean, he's really been a weapon on this offense. And what I definitely think we will not see in this playoff game from Nick Sirianni is him trying to draw a play specifically for Quez Watkins or Jalen Reagor. He's tried to give them opportunities. They failed for the most part. I mean, embarrassingly seeing JJ Arcega-Whiteside drop that ball that hit him in the gut. I mean, that penalty or not. And they called a penalty on him the next play too. So it's just embarrassing. I understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to see what weapons he has still on this team. And what that really proved is in this upcoming offseason, the Eagles are going to need a veteran wide receiver. And that's probably their number one need to me right now is that wide receiver. And I'm talking about free agency. The draft is a whole nother can of worms to dive into. But real quick, like the fourth matchup that I'm looking at is, and we already talked about Mailata a little bit, but Barrett, how much of a challenge is Shaquille Barrett gonna have on Mailata? And that's really gonna make or break how this offense sort of progresses throughout the game and how they get things going.
Follow up what you're saying, not just Mailata, he's going to be matched up against because they move Shaq Barrett around. It's also going to be matched up against Lane Johnson. So him versus our tackles, Shaq Barrett versus our tackles, that's really going to be a huge matchup. Last thing that you want to do is put yourself in a 3rd and long situation that allows Shaq Barrett to be able to get off and to be able to just tee off on Jalen Hurts. That's the last thing that you want. You got to be able to get ahead in the sticks.
I'm confident in the offensive line. I think the offensive line is going to do their thing. They've been doing their thing all season long. And I don't think this Tampa Bay defensive front is going to be anything different. I know they're a bit more talented than the defensive lines that the Eagles have faced previously, but even look at that Washington defensive line. They're pretty solid. Eagles handled them pretty well in that Washington football game on Tuesday night at the Link. I don't think that's going to be the story of this game. I'm confident the Eagles offensive line is going to do their thing, especially in pass protection. I'm curious though, can they create those holes and, be able to run the football up the middle of the field? I'm not so sure about that. That's where Hurts's play comes into question as far as what his arm and his accuracy. You turn that around, you look at the defensive end. This is where I think the game's going to be played. Can the Eagles get lucky? Yes, the key word, lucky. They're going to need to get some luck if they want to win this game. Can they create some turnovers? Can they get a lucky fumble? Can Leonard Fournette? I think Leonard Fournette, if he misses this game, is huge because Ronald Jones is a massive step below the talent of Leonard Fournette, both running the football and his pass catching ability. So if you're able to not have to play Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones as the running back, I don't think he's going to have a huge role. If that's the case, I could see Brady throwing this football 40 to 50 times a game, and you only see Ronald Jones get 8 to 10 carries just to keep the defense honest. So that's when the pressure is going to come on the defensive line. Can Josh Sweat, who, give him credit, he's been playing great football the last couple of weeks. He's getting pressure on the quarterback, was great in that game against Washington on the road. Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave in the middle, they need to create pressure up the gut and just make Brady uncomfortable because I think our corners, massive upgrade from last season. I think Slay's having a much better year. Steven Nelson's done his part to be productive, of course. And linebackers, give TJ Edwards a lot of credit. Shine the spotlight on him real fast. He's been great tackling-wise. He has a bunch of tackles. Same thing with Alex Singleton this year. You're not going to rely on them to be your stars of the defense. But they just have to be serviceable, most importantly, in coverage. I don't think I would send some blitzes in this game, but the way Tom Brady can sit back there and pick apart this defense, I don't know if back in the Super Bowl, just to give you a quick example, the Eagles didn't blitz a ton. They were able to just get to Brady with 4 rushers and throw everybody back into coverage.
I think is very nice. Let's be honest here.
Yes. And I think for the most part, you're going to have to just hope the defensive line can get pressure, make Brady uncomfortable, throw Singleton and Edwards back in coverage. I wouldn't bring a ton of blitzes in this game. And your defensive line has to help, along with Jalen Hurts being the number one reason the Eagles need to win, or for them winning if they do. I think the defensive line will be number 2.
Honestly, I it's not even the defensive line that needs to be number 2. Number 2 needs to be Jonathan Gannon, who, by the way, is being interviewed, has been asked to be interviewed by the Denver Broncos for their vacant head coaching position. God, please, somebody take him.
Really?
Yes.
And the Bears.
Breaking news to me. I don't see
Bears.
why.
Oh, really? The Bears. Now, the Bears I didn't hear about.
Yeah, Flores is, if I'm the Bears, Chicago Bears, Flores is the coach right away.
I agree. But back to Jonathan Gannon. Jonathan Gannon has been playing very conservative as of late, very conservative this entire season. Let's be honest here. We've all complained, especially me, about how soft this defense is, how passive it is, how basically quarterbacks are allowed to dink and dunk. I mean, let's be honest here. Against the good quarterbacks, the Eagles haven't beat a good quarterback with a winning record this entire season, partly because of the defense. That's an issue. Tom Brady did a pretty good job against them during the regular season. So they're going to need to change that around. Jonathan Gannon's going to have to figure something out. He cannot allow Tom Brady to just dunk the defense up and down the field. And that's exactly what Tom Brady is going to do. Tom Brady is patient. He's not going to throw into a coverage that he can't fit that ball into. That just doesn't make any sense for Brady. Brady's going to take his time if need be. He's going to be meticulous. All right. He's going to take his time if need be until he eventually he scores on your defense. So you got to come after Brady. And I agree with you, Max. The defensive line does need to step up. But Jonathan Gannon is going to need to dial some stuff up. He needs to bring some TE stunts. All right. These guys need to figure out somehow or some way how to get to Tom Brady. That's number one. Number two, Jonathan Gannon needs to step up his play calling.
Are you guys okay with Jonathan Gannon accepting a head coaching job next season?
Hell to the freaking yes. Get the hell out. Please. There's plenty of defensive coordinators out there I can take. I'll make Mike Zimmer my defensive coordinator. I can make Brian Flores my defensive coordinator. Get the hell out. Gone. Please. Yes. I don't care if he leaves. All right. Just get out. All right. Get out. I don't care.
He hasn't been great this year. I will agree with you. Jonathan Gannon hasn't been that great of a defensive coordinator. I think at times the defensive players have just been good. Like we've improved defensively this year. The talent, the people taking steps forward in their second, third, fourth years in this football league. I think I'm not going to give a ton of credit to Gannon. I think it's just more of a lot of the same talent that we've seen last year, but people just taking steps forward. I've seen a massive increase in the play from Darius Slay. Not to rhyme anything there, but a massive increase in play from Darius Slay. Steven Nelson, I was skeptical early on. A couple of plays early in the season. I think he even had one a couple weeks ago where I was just like scratching my head, like, what are you doing? But for the most part, he's been fine. He's been a serviceable cornerback. And Avonte Maddox, man, give him a lot of credit. I was harping on him all in the offseason. I thought he was terrible. And he was terrible. Give me a second to defend myself. He was terrible as an outside corner.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, I said the same thing. Absolutely.
Slot corner, much different scenario, and he's been solid. So I don't know if it's Jonathan Gannon credit. I don't think it is. I think it's more just the players being more talented.
It's the players being more talented. And
do you think Darius Slay is over there saying, "Oh yeah, all credit to Gannon for
I doubt it."
And my name is Big Play Slay. I make big plays. All right, I did to hell with Jonathan Gannon. Yep. In case y'all didn't get my message, man, that was for Jonathan Gannon. I will drive him to the Philadelphia International Airport. All right, personally myself.
Real quick, I want to bring up something. This is not to do with the Eagles anymore, but it does have to do with the NFL, and it's about Max's favorite quarterback, Carson Wentz, and how he performed against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's talk about that because Carson Wentz is not in the playoffs. Jalen Hurts is. Carson Wentz just had to win against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Max, let's hear some explanation about this. A huge Carson Wentz fan. I believe it was in October or something. You posted a QB1 Carson Wentz photo on your story. Let's give you some time to explain yourself because the Eagles are in the playoffs. 3 first-round draft picks thanks to one of Carson Wentz. Let's hear some explanation.
Yeah.
Well, I think for me, that first of all, talk about this Jacksonville Jaguars game. Carson Wentz did not have he didn't play well. I mean, there's no way around it. He didn't have a good football game. A couple of atrocious turnovers. Jacksonville played this game like I mean, and I've for whatever reason, don't ask me why. I've watched the Jaguars play a decent amount this year. This is the first time where I've seen them come out and they were like, this is like a Super Bowl for us. I mean, they played aggressively. This is the best Jaguars game that they've played since they played the Bills and beat Buffalo back in like week 6, 7, 8, whatever it was. I mean, that game, you had Jonathan Allen, the defensive lineman, just go off in that game. They were getting pressure. And the Colts offensive line, you guys know, Colts offensive line is great. The Jaguars were teeing off on the Colts offensive line. Jonathan Taylor, unable to get much going on the ground. And they just dug themselves too deep of a hole early on. Their turnovers came at the absolute worst time for Carson Wentz because they had 3 points. It was only, I think it was like 13-3 or 10-3, a couple of bad turnovers. And listen, give Jacksonville credit. They took advantage of it. I think they went up 23-3 at one point, and Wentz just didn't play well. But I will say this as well. What about Frank Reich? I When you talk about a coach, and this is to anybody, really. This is to everybody in Philadelphia. Everybody was saying, we need Frank Reich back. Let's get Frank Reich. We need him to win a Super Bowl. The guy has an ultra-talented offensive line. Jonathan Taylor, arguably close to being the MVP, and the guy's not even going to the playoffs. Where's all the Frank Reich love at now from Philly fans?
Hey, Tyler, tag me in. I can answer this. Tag me in.
Go ahead, T.
I got you. Let me tell you something. All right, Carson Wentz is trash. All right, as a former Carson Wentz fan, Carson Wentz is trash. All right.
Let me add the stats to help you out a little more.
All right, go ahead.
17 of 29, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He did have 2 thrown interceptions in a row. I think it was called back, or something like that. 185 yards. That's 74%. Quarterback rating. Gardner Minshew, 19 of 33 against the starting defense for the most part against the Cowboys. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 186 yards, 81% rating. So T, continue.
All right, thank you. Thank you for providing what I basically said is in the continuation is that Carson Wentz stinks. All right, and the fact that Max, you're sitting here and making excuses for man is absolutely unacceptable on your behalf. All right, I am disappointed in your analysis of Carson Wentz. All right, how dare you? All right, try to blame this on Frank Reich. Does Frank Reich play a part in this? Yes. However, last season, the Indianapolis Colts was able to go to the playoffs with I thought Tom Brady was immobile. Phillip Rivers couldn't move for shit last season, but yet and still, they still went to the playoffs. All right, you have a supposed damn near former MVP quarterback on your squad now. Carson Wentz was in a quarterback's dream. All right. You have a dynamic, damn near MVP candidate, Jonathan Taylor. MVP candidate running back. Hell of a running game. Solid offensive line. Decent receivers. You have a top 10 defense, but you still can't take the team to the playoffs. That's not on Frank Reich. That's not on Jim Irsay, the owner. That's straight up on Carson Wentz. He stinks.
He was saying he was like blindsided about that loss and everything that goes into that. And I'll admit, Jaguars were playing good. I mean, the Jaguars and the Lions were playing as if they didn't want that first overall pick because the Lions, I believe the Jaguars game was finished first. So the Lions could see that the Jaguars won and they could maybe, drop it to the Packers. Didn't happen though. But yeah, Carson Wentz, I mean, he was not looking good out there at all. And I know that those same Carson Wentz fans are going to be looking ahead to this Buccaneers matchup and putting all this pressure on Jalen Hurts. And depending on how Jalen Hurts plays, they're going to be saying, let's draft a quarterback. Let's pick up a quarterback. I mean, let's be real. This is the playoffs. This is Jalen Hurts' first time in the postseason. We had to wait a while to see Carson Wentz in the postseason. And when he did, he played for a quarter.
Now,
listen.
It's crazy.
I think the last couple weeks of the season for Carson Wentz were not good. All right. You talk about the Jaguars game, of course, want to harp on that. Fine. The loss to the Raiders, not great either at home. But before then, you talk about beating the Patriots. You talk about beating the Cardinals on the road on Christmas night.
Max, that wasn't about Carson Wentz. That was about Jonathan Taylor and the defense.
Jonathan Taylor, as the season progressed, started to become more heavily involved in offense, no doubt. You got to go back in the first half of the season where he's always been involved heavily. But the game plan, clearly, the last 5, 6, 7 weeks of the season, give Jonathan Taylor 25 to 30 carries a game. They're not asking Wentz to do too much with that.
That's what
they lose when JT doesn't rush for more than 100 yards. They lose.
That's saying
almost every time.
That's a detriment to your quarterback. The fact that you have to run the football, okay, admittedly, we already said this about Jalen Hurts, but the fact that you got to run the football that much to cover up your quarterback's mistakes, that's an issue. Carson Wentz is what, in his 6th year at this point? There should be there's no excuses for him.
Right. And Carson Wentz anymore isn't thought of a super mobile quarterback that can really juke out defenders and stuff like that. For the most part, he needs to stick in the pocket now because of his injury history. I mean, he doesn't do that either way. But yeah, again, Jonathan Taylor, when you keep handing the ball off and you usually only win when this guy runs for more than 100 yards, that's saying something.
Let's go back to week 5, Colts, Ravens, Monday Night Football. Wentz, 25 of 35.
Loves going in the past. He loves going in the past.
400, excuse me, not 300, 402 yards, 2 touchdowns, passer rating of 128. Jonathan Taylor in that game, only 15 carries for 53 yards.
Okay,
So
And they're still not in the playoffs,
argument
mentioning all
here-
this Carson
argument-
Wentz stats.
my thing is the beginning of the season, Wentz was relied on more heavily in the game plan to throw the ball with his arm and be part of the offense as we're going through Carson Wentz, Jonathan Taylor, your complimentary guy. As the season went on, let's look forward here. I don't want to take up too much airtime with this, but you look forward in weeks after that. Colts, week 7, for example, they go on the road to San Francisco. And this is when Jonathan Taylor starts to become more heavily involved in the offense, but Wentz is still there. 17-26 for Carson Wentz, 150 yards passing. He had 2 touchdowns. Remember, it was raining that night in San Francisco. Jonathan Taylor, only 18 carries in that game. He had 107 yards, of course, because he's just a stud. But it's not until they got to weeks 10, 11, 12 where you started to see Taylor get near 30 carries a game. They just didn't ask Wentz to do a ton the last 5-6 weeks of the season. But you got to look the whole season, big picture here. Yes, did Carson Wentz play poorly in that Jacksonville game? He was awful in that Jacksonville game. But that's not you can't just sit up here and say Carson Wentz is trash, because big picture, he had a good season overall. Just didn't end the way he wanted it to.
Right, Carson Wentz is not good. I won't say he's complete trash. I won't go as far as T has gone with his criticism. But Carson Wentz, he hasn't played good enough to get his team in the playoffs, and Jalen Hurts has. It's as simple as that. And Carson Wentz, you can go ahead and say, "Oh, Carson Wentz, quarterback 1," but when you go back in time, which I know you like doing, and you compare for the starting quarterbacks, who would you think this team would be more successful as if we're considering a new coach as in Nick Sirianni, and all that right now? You got to love the progression that Jalen Hurts has made in just his first season starting here, and how long we had to take for Carson Wentz finally get him to the playoffs, albeit he did play a huge part in that Super Bowl season, no doubt about it, but he did not finish. Jalen Hurts, hopefully is able to play decently enough in this playoff game. And I'm not saying a win or anything, but enough to show the Eagles that he is the guy, at least for the next season.
Agreed. I can completely agree with that. But Max, Max, you're a smarter dude than that. I understand that you're trying to bring up the past. You're trying to bring up the past.
You guys are bringing up the past. You're highlighting 1 or 2 weeks out of an entire 18-week season.
But
we're highlighting the most important game.
Yes.
Of the Colts season.
And the thing of it is, the most important game, Carson Wentz did not step up to the plate and do what he needed to do.
He didn't play well in this. He didn't play well. Listen, you're getting no argument from me. Yeah, okay, he didn't play well in this last game. But you can't just say Carson Wentz is trash after what he's done all the way through the whole regular season because he didn't play well in one game to get to the playoffs.
Max, you could have took
T. Let's get your final word in here because we're just going to keep going in a circle. Right. T and Max and Max, you get your last final word, and then we're going to move on to that Antonio Brown fella.
Oh God, Max. At the end of the day, look, I don't understand why you still support Carson Wentz. And listen, remember, I was the main guy, Carson Wentz's last year, that continued to defend him from YouTube. But now, I'm attacking him, and now me and Tanner are attacking you, and you're the only one that's defending him. There's no defending that Carson Wentz has not stepped up to the plate when it matters the most. He had an opportunity to take his team to the playoffs and really change the mindset of not only the people here in Philly, but the people out there in Indianapolis. Do you know there's articles out there right now in the scenarios that people are trying to come up with to figure out how the hell the front office can get rid of Carson Wentz? That's a problem. That's an issue.
Oh. All right, T. And also just want to add in the drama that he brought to the team in the beginning, not being able to practice with the team because of that injury, and then the vaccine drama, all that, blah, blah, blah. That adds to it too in some form of way. But we're talking about Carson Wentz, the player right now. Max, your final say on Carson Wentz.
Well, I mean, my final thought on Carson Wentz is you look at one game against Jacksonville Jaguars where he didn't play well to get their team into the playoffs. I understand that 100%. You can say that all you want. Back when he was healthy, before all the injuries, he got the Eagles to the playoffs. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Last season, a 4-12 Eagle team weren't great. You can't highlight him in that scenario. Of course, the whole team didn't play well. This year, you look back even weeks 8 against the Tennessee Titans. Wentz threw 51 times. threw 51 times. He threw for 231 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor only 16 carries for 70 yards in that game. The week after that, go to week 9, Thursday night football against the Jets. Carson Wentz. Let's look at the numbers. 27 of 41, 317 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor had a great game, 19 carries only. But my whole point is Jonathan Taylor from weeks 9, 10 forward became an enormous part of that offense compared to where he was previously with only 15 to 19 carries per game and now getting up near that 30 touch per game mark. It's simple. The offense from Frank Reich just changed once Jonathan Taylor continued to take step by step to improve. And when it resulted in the end, Carson Wentz did not do enough against the Jaguars to earn the right to go to the playoffs.
All right. Antonio Brown. Let's bring him into the mix. I wish there was a commercial break after that Carson Wentz segment so we could simmer down a little bit, talk about Antonio Brown, a topic that we're all pretty much still questioning because, I mean, it's a bunch of AB says, Bruce Arians says, kind of stuff like that. Mike Evans was a little bit in the mix talking to AB on the sideline, but let's go over this timeline as of recently. I'm not going to go over the whole Raiders Steelers type of drama, but let's start with that 3-week suspension Antonio Brown received after having a fake vaccine card. He's putting his team at risk potentially because he pretended that he had the vaccine and that he was vaccinated, stuff like that. We're not going to get into that specifically because next, while he's going through the suspension, he is dealing with ankle injuries. An ankle injury. There's proof. He actually showed the text messages he sent to Bruce Arians that was sort of going into the week that he was going to be eligible to play again after that suspension. Bruce Arians, he replies to him. He says, you know what, if you're good to play, let me know, blah, blah, blah. We still like to have you on the sideline, all that stuff. It looked like they had a mutual agreement to that decision. Antonio Brown didn't practice that Thursday, Friday. Game day, January 2nd. In the third quarter, Antonio Brown runs off the field. No shirt on, waving to the crowd. And just, it's something that none of us have ever seen before. Anyone really has ever seen that before. Mid-game, this happened. The mystery starts happening about the conversations that happened on the sideline. AB said that Bruce Arians did a gesture at his throat, said you're done. And then that's when AB took off his pads, his jersey, because he said that he wanted nothing to do with the Buccaneers logo or anything like that. That's why he took off the shirt. He admitted later that that was unnecessary to do. And he realizes that he's on the Full Send the Nelk Boys podcast, Pat McAfee show, talking about this because they have sources close. And then more drama drops that Antonio Brown snuck a woman into the hotel room previous to this game. His hotel room is near Tom Brady. Supposedly, TB found out about this woman, and he was not happy about that. This woman ended up having COVID after she left the hotel. And I mean, this is a mess, and we're not surprised that Antonio Brown is involved. However, we have to realize that this also has to do with mental health and stuff like that. So, albeit the situation that happened on the field, I know that was all over social media. You have to recognize that this is also a person involved in this, and he realized his actions, said he would do differently. But let's talk about this Buccaneers team, because if these rumors from Antonio Brown are true, that he is practically forcing Antonio Brown to play on the field, and when he said he didn't want to play, that's how this whole conversation happened with "you're done, get out of here." That's a real problem if he's forcing hurt players. And I know the Buccaneers know this is a problem because after the game, Bruce Arians said Antonio Brown is no longer a Buck, and they waited 2 or 3 more days after that to finally release him. I think they're sort of trying to cover up their tracks, make sure they had enough proof just in case This wanted to go to court, the situation, contract detrimental, and stuff like that. I mean, this is a sticky situation for sure.
I think this is a very interesting and a very dicey situation that's been going on with Antonio Brown and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And look, we're on record of saying this basically, that Antonio Brown is an ass clown from his previous confrontations, and but with this, it's a little bit more suspicious. And I'm not saying that I totally agree with. Oh, no, I don't 100% agree with how Antonio Brown is approaching all of this and the rumors that's coming out. But I can't help to think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers also screwed him over as well, because if you look, even if you look at the injury report, because I looked at the injury report up to that New York Jets game, he was listed on the injury list with an ankle injury. There were some days where he was a limited participant. That ankle was bothering him. That's documented. So it was true. He had ankle issues.
Right. And I think that real quick, I think that Bruce Arians quote was kind of blown out of proportion, saying that he did not know about the ankle injury. He had to have known. And I think he was talking about he did not know that it was a problem in this game, considering that AB was suited up. I think that's sort of where the disconnect goes with the quote, misinterpreting if he is lying because Antonio Brown sent the text messages. I mean, this is a whole thing. And they had mics and players were mic'd up on the sideline during the situation. And the reason that these are not released yet is interesting. I
agree with you. I think the NFL is going to investigate this entire thing. And I think we are going to get the truth because, like you said, there were players that was mic'd up during this whole thing. So we are going to get the entire truth. But there's just something suspicious going on. And I agree with you that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are probably going to be looked at real hard about this, because if you look at the timeline, Bruce Arians, right after the game, straight up said he's done. He's no longer a Buccaneer, but it did take them 2-3 days to officially release him. That's a little funny. If you say that a player is done and he's done, cut him, get rid of him. But it took you a couple days. So for me, I feel like the team, and this is just speculation from my end, I feel like the team was trying to search for a reason just in case this thing, like you said, Tanner, goes to court or the NFL starts to investigate. I think they tried to find a reason to justify getting rid of Antonio Brown because of this whole situation. Now, once again, Antonio Brown is an ass clown. All these things that are coming out, all the things that he's done in the past, he's an ass clown. Let's be honest here. So his reputation kind of takes a hit, and it kind of makes you question a whole lot of things. But in this situation,
does his reputation take a hit though? This is sort of the same kind of reputation he's been keeping.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Like the Steelers.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, his reputation is basically shot.
Right. But how many chances is he going to get? How many more chances? Is he even going to get another chance?
No, in the NFL, he's done. What is he, 32, 33?
Super gremlin. And he went, after he left the game, he just went and recorded a few songs. Meek Mill's involved in this album he's trying to put together. I mean, it seems like Antonio Brown sort of used this situation a little bit as a publicity stunt, albeit he's already in the NFL. He's already a known player in the NFL, but just bringing attention to maybe his music also could be a reason for this little outburst. He knew that the Buccaneers, he says the Buccaneers did not want to give him that incentive he needed. So-and-so catches for so-and-so yards.
That's bullshit.
He brings Tom Brady into this, saying that he's only his friend because Antonio Brown is good at football. To me, the situation, Tom Brady took this man into his house. He kind of, made sure that he was in the right mindset, and he is the biggest reason Antonio Brown is a Super Bowl champion. It's thanks to the Buccaneers giving him that chance. Bruce Arians wasn't on board with that chance too. So you sort of look at it like that in this situation as well. He let Tom Brady have his guy. And this season, it definitely did not work out. He had a moment of silence for himself on that Full Send podcast, by the way. He held a moment of silence for himself, for his career. on that podcast. So I don't know if he's fully affected by this yet. He said he wants to come back, play football. I don't know if we'll get that chance. He probably will. There probably will be a team out there, which is kind of crazy. He's just making his way around the league.
You guys make both great points. I think listening to both you guys go back and forth on this subject is great points. Definitely problems on both sides here. Shortly, a small amount to the Buccaneers, because I personally think teams do this all the time. I think teams have a guy on the injury report say, hey, get your ass out there and start playing. We need you to today. We need you to get out there and play. And some guys mentally, they'll be like, yeah, sure. Like, I understand, like, people understanding the situation. If you physically can't play, you physically can't play. And guys, for the most part, if they have a good reputation, good connection with the coach, good connection with the GM, say, hey, I know my ankle's pretty messed up, but I'll go out there and play for you guys because I'm not going to let my teammates down. Antonio Brown is not about teammates. Antonio Brown's about Antonio Brown, in my opinion. And if somebody says, hey, get out there and play, just like they would with Mike Evans probably, or Chris Godwin, and Antonio Brown, instead of saying, okay, I'm going to go out there for my teammates and ball out, he's going to say, oh, you know what? Maybe I could just say, well, they're forcing me to play. They're forcing me to do this. I mean, that's illegal, blah, blah, blah. And then it turns into a whole political thing with Antonio Brown. But for the most part, you say Antonio Brown said that he was one of the main reasons why the Buccaneers were able to make that playoff run and then win the Super Bowl. He didn't play in the Packers NFC Championship game when Tom Brady beat the Packers and Aaron Rodgers in Lambeau Field. He had 5 catches for 22 yards in the Super Bowl. If he doesn't catch that touchdown pass, what did he really do? 5 catches for 22 yards. He got a lucky. I mean, anybody, if you remember the play, it was like literally a 5-yard out route in the end zone. I mean, it wasn't anything spectacular.
It looked like he was just trying to give him a touchdown pass.
Exactly. So did he really help the Buccaneers win a Super Bowl? Not really. We're going to win the Super Bowl anyway. Everybody who watched the Super Bowl knew Tampa Bay was the better team. So you can't really name that argument. Then on top of that, Tanner, you mentioned him bringing a woman into his hotel room and things like that. And that was brushed under the rug. No one mentioned that. Didn't come out until after this whole spiel went down with him leaving. I'm sure we wouldn't have heard about that if Antonio Brown, you know what I mean? So you can't just say, hey, Tom Brady's not looking out for me or he's only looking out for me because I'm a good football player. Like he's brushing, and him and Arians brushing the things after things under the rug. And you say, hey, you only like me because I'm a football player. Well, you're bringing girls into your hotel room, you're spreading COVID and whatnot. And all of a sudden, now we're the bad guys because we're not supporting you, even though you just threw your shoulder pads into the crowd and things like that. So, and then on top of that, the next day you're going to go on a podcast and just start talking shit about everything. You can't just be mature about it and just kind of talk to your agent and put out a press release statement. You're going to have to go on a podcast and just start, flying dirty air up there. I just think the whole thing is just ridiculous.
I will say that he was mature and professional in a way where he did not want to put words in other people's mouth during that full send, because one of the guys interviewing him was talking about, well, why did they do this? Why did they say this to you? And he said he didn't, he's not going to answer that because he doesn't know why that person would say that or act like that. But I mean, going back
why even go on this in the first place? Why? Any other mature receiver player.
The music. I'm thinking the music. He knows he's not playing football anymore, as this season at least. And I mean, he's already moved on to the music. I mean, he left MetLife and went to the studio. This was planned,
right?
Or something
he didn't even care. It's already out the window.
What's not clear to me is, so Antonio Brown, in the beginning of this situation, I don't think it's much of a topic right now, considering all the other stuff we brought up. But if Antonio Brown wanted that incentive and was saying that the Buccaneers were trying to keep him from that, but Bruce Arians was telling him to go out on the field and Antonio Brown didn't want to go on the field, it doesn't make sense to me. It sounds like Antonio Brown was keeping himself off the field, albeit he was injured. But either way, how's that the Buccaneers keeping Antonio Brown away from making that extra money? And my final point here, because T, I know you want to talk on this topic, is you're exactly right, Max. If this Antonio Brown thing doesn't happen, we're not hearing about this James Brown type girl who mysteriously sneaks past security on the elevators, on the stairs, the desk. I mean, how does she get into an NFL hotel, a hotel that has floors reserved for NFL players? How does she sneak in and get into a room? I don't get that either.
I think this entire thing is It's a bunch of he said, she said, and it's eventually we're gonna come to a resolution about this entire thing. I think
Maybe.
I think AB is a bullshitter. I do think that he did play an unnecessary part in this, and I do think the Buccaneers do have something to do with this. I agree that these rumors is coming out now that AB, has been released by the Buccaneers. Maybe that's Arians and Brady, hiding those things, and the fact that the rumor that came out about Brady, not getting Antonio Brown his touches to get the incentive, that's bullshit. Brady on purpose will throw to you for you to get your bonuses. That's been proven in the past.
I don't think.
Well, we
see,
saw
real
it with
quick,
Gronk.
Yeah, I don't think Antonio Brown's beef should be with Tom Brady. I think it should be with the ownership
No.
of the GM. You know,
But that's what I'm saying. But see, and I was just about to get into that. Like, why are you beefing with Brady? Brady gave you a chance twice. Once with the Patriots and then once again with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He gave you two opportunities to prove yourself because of how talented you are, but you still want to blow it and be a dumbass. That's on you. I'm sorry. But to give credit, to kind of bring this conversation to a close, bring this topic to a close, you got to give, man, the Pittsburgh Steelers, you got to give them credit. You got to put up with that for 9
Mike
years.
Tomlin.
You got to give the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin credit to be able to keep that man in check for 9 years, y'all. 9 years, no rumors, no nothing came out until Antonio Brown left Pittsburgh.
People are
extra credit.
putting this how Antonio Brown has been acting on CTE and that hit that he suffered while on the Steelers in that Bengals game.
Honestly.
They're kind of putting that on that too, but we won't really know the reason for that specifically. But I mean, this whole situation is just crazy, and Antonio Brown is bringing people. He's beefing with people that don't even need to be involved, like chefs. He didn't pay a bill earlier in the season. I think as payback, this chef kind of said that Antonio Brown's Vax card is completely fake, and then he's beefing with a chef. He's beefing with Tom Brady's trainer, saying that this guy owes him money. I don't know if it was Tom Brady's trainer. It was someone connected with Tom Brady, working out with Antonio Brown. He owed him thousands of dollars or something like that. But yeah, this situation's crazy.
It is.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I know we got to wrap this up real fast here. I also want to touch on the Sixers, obviously, to wrap this up. Of course, 7 in a row, Tanner. And see, they're playing good basketball. One of the big things have come out recently, and when I say recently, I mean the last 2 days. Sixers are now trying to include Tobias Harris in these Ben Simmons trades, if I'm hearing things correctly.
That's the first time I think I've heard that Tobias Harris being involved. I mean, Tobias Harris has had an up and down season compared to last season.
He's had an awful season too.
And he's
call it how it is. He's nowhere near performing.
Let's be honest, and I'm not making excuses for Tobias, but he did have COVID in the beginning of the year, and it's been well documented.
Wentz had COVID too, man. Like Wentz had COVID.
Listen to me, Max. Listen to me. Let me finish. COVID does have a history of affecting certing players.
I'm only teasing you too. I'm only teasing.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't jackass. Anyway, shoot. So I think Tobias Harris is now starting to get his shit together. And look, if it gets included in the trade, depending on what we get back, I'll like I said.
Tanner, go off, Tanner. Go off.
Listen.
When was the last time Tobias Harris has been a reason the Sixers won the game?
He's not that type of player. If you really, he's getting paid to be that type of player.
He's an NBA basketball player. Too. What do you want him to just stand on the court and when the fans boo him, say, oh, "Okay, yeah, boo me." But when I make one layup, don't cheer when this team's winning and you paid money to come see the team win and me score. Don't cheer because you booed me in the past. Like that's bullshit. This guy has not. How many seasons do we have to talk about Tobias Harris not playing up to standard? The amount of money. While we have guys like Jimmy Butler, who was on this team, Miami Heat played great. But this team has surely missed him since Jimmy Butler's departure. We have Ben Simmons, who's focused on wedding planning and not playing in the NBA. I mean, this team, it's surprising that they've won 7 in a row. And each of those games, Joel Embiid has scored 30 plus points. Joel Embiid's the reason this team is where they are, and he needs help. I mean, Seth Curry's not playing in this game. I believe he has ankle soreness or something. But I mean, when you look at this team, who are the top 3 players? T, name them.
Embiid.
The top 3 performing players.
Top 3 performing players.
Embiid, Embiid. Honestly,
And Embiid.
You could throw Seth Curry up in there, but it's Embiid. Let's be honest here.
Right. And the whole reason for this team, for bringing Daryl Morey in here, is to build this team to be a playoff contending team, which, I mean, they still can make the playoffs.
Yeah,
but where are they going to go? I'm sick and tired of a second round exit. I'm sick and tired of it. And when you go now minus the player whose fault it was that the Sixers did not advance against the Hawks, who do you have? I mean, it's surprising to see that this team is where they are, because for the most part, I stopped watching the 76ers for a little bit because of the way that they were playing, how Joel Embiid was sort of just trapped in Philadelphia. I mean, he loves the crowd. He loves the way the fan base is, but come on, give this big man some help. Let him be able to sit out a game or two and still play the rest of the games at the end of the season, so he can be an actual MVP candidate and win. I mean, right now, this guy's just running his motor so high that he's going to be tired out by the second half of this season.
I agree, but that all falls on Daryl Morey.
I'll close this down with this final point here. I think one thing I've heard, John Collins, once out of Atlanta. I know he's a guy that's pretty talented. Cam Reddish has been packaged in a mock trade with the Sixers and the Hawks. But listen, also Klay Thompson comes back, so it does just really matter. The Warriors are going to go, 100-0 their next 100 games probably. But my thing is this. I think there's 4 guys on this team that I would keep right now: Seth Curry, Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, and Joel Embiid. Everybody else, I may be throwing Andre Drummond, who, listen, give him credit, been very cheap backup center. He's been very solid in that role. But other than that, I'm starting to get worried about Ben Simmons. And it's not because of the trade or anything like that. I'm starting to get worried about the Sixers need to find a trade partner, and they're trying to trade him. But I'm starting to think they need to pull the trigger on something, because Ben Simmons hasn't played a basketball game in how long now at this point, and mentally he doesn't even care. Like he's not fighting through an injury and he needs to get back into the swing things, and he's like, I got to get back on the court. Like, the guy does not care. Teams are going to start noticing that and saying, well, this guy's not even, I mean, maybe he's in the gym, maybe he's not, who knows? Tanner said he's focused on wedding planning. He has no mentality and no mindset of, I'm hungry to get back on the court and play NBA basketball again. I think the Sixers need to get rid of this guy ASAP, get whatever you can for him. Just get him off of the roster before it's too late, because it's getting to that point.
I was about to say,
this man's losing tons of money, and I know we had to wrap this up. He's losing tons of money. I believe it's like $300,000.
He doesn't even care. He doesn't even care.
And he's apparently going bankrupt, but he just bought an engagement ring, proposed on, I believe it was on Christmas. How original. But like, I mean, Max, you're right. Is this guy even going to play basketball anymore? It really doesn't look like he cares.
They need to get him out of Philly now, T. They need to do it, because he's just going to, like, he's just sitting at home chilling. Like, he's not even an NBA player anymore.
So to correct some of y'all, at this point, I think it's been about a couple of days now, but there was a report that came out that he's not getting fined anymore because he's participating in the meetings and that nature. So he's not getting fined anymore. In terms of
virtually, like, is he physically going to the meetings?
I don't know. I just got the details that he's attending the meetings and things of that nature. Now, in terms of him being broke, that's not true. He's not broke. All right. He could sell one of his cars, one of his Lambos, and boom, he's right back at it. It's not broke. So forget about that rumor too. But this all falls on Daryl Morey. Like, and Joel Embiid is having, once again, and another MVP-like season. And if you don't get Joel Embiid help, then guess what? Daryl Morey's not the general manager that we all thought he was. And Doc Rivers,
he's going to get him help, too. He's going to get help. The Sixers just won a game last night where Isaiah Joe played 25 minutes. That tells you something.
Yeah, we got a guy by the name of Charlie Brown on the Sixers court too. Just saying, there is a man on the Sixers.
22 minutes. He played 22 minutes last night. See, we're winning games in the NBA with Charlie Brown playing 22 minutes.
It's stupid.
Yeah, unfortunately.
All you got to do is get like one or two pieces. And this team, listen, if the matchups fall right and you can avoid the Bucs or the Nets in the first or second round and play the Bulls, that Bulls have already won, or the Sixers have already beaten them 3 times this year. So if the matchups fall right, this team can go
2
to
times in a row.
So I'm saying it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible, but you better bring some players around Embiid. You better,
Miles Powell, 20 minutes. Who's Miles Powell take?
Shit, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Shit, I don't know. I'll be honest with you. Shoot, let's wrap this thing up before you describe another player that I don't freaking know. All right, you guys been listening to this episode. You can always go to Philly-Experience. That's simplecast.com. Available on all major downloadable platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. The entire shabazz. Look, I understand the Sixers need to do something, but if y'all think Ben Simmons drama is far from over, it ain't. All right, this drama is going to continue. In my opinion, I don't think he's going to get traded this year.
Wow.
Sorry.
I'm embarrassed.
I want winners.
Because that guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing. We know it's hard.
It really pops out and it grows. The Rangers do every day.
You go shit on me.